What if I told you that some of the most innovative horror films ever made came from the 1950s? These groundbreaking works introduced concepts we still see in horror today. In this video, we're counting down 10 1950s horror films that will blow your mind. From pioneering special effects to movies that pushed boundaries, these films laid the foundation for modern horror. Get ready to discover how these classics shaped the genre in ways you might not expect.
Fantasy, sci-fi, nostalgia, rerun zone.
I Was a Teenage Werewolf, 1957. A new breed of monster emerged from an unexpected source in 1957. The high school hallway. I Was a Teenage Werewolf hit theaters, marking a significant shift in horror cinema by combining the classic werewolf myth with the struggles of teenage life. Michael Landon, in his breakout role as Tony Rivers, portrayed a troubled teen grappling with anger issues. After undergoing controversial hypnotherapy, Tony transforms into a werewolf, symbolizing the intense emotions and loss of control many teens experience. Landon's performance captured the raw intensity of adolescence, helping launch his career as a television star. The film tapped into the growing generational divide of the 1950s, portraying adults as potential threats to teenage independence. This exploration of youth culture struck a chord with audiences, especially younger viewers who saw their own struggles reflected on screen. The theme of youth rebellion against authority became a staple of future horror films, influencing generations of filmmakers. I Was a Teenage Werewolf proved to be a howling success, grossing around $2 million against a modest $82,000 budget. It paved the way for a wave of teen monster movies, including I Was a Teenage Frankenstein and Blood of Dracula. Horror of Dracula, 1958. Horror of Dracula took a different approach to the horror genre in 1958. Hammer Films reimagined the classic vampire tale in vivid Technicolor, putting their monster front and center. Christopher Lee's Dracula oozed dark, brooding sexuality, a departure from earlier, more restrained portrayals. Lee himself wanted to bring an erotic element to the character, saying, "He should also have an erotic element about him. It's a mysterious matter and has something to do with the physical appeal of the person who's draining your life." This new take on Dracula was both visually striking and commercially successful. The film earned about $3.5 million worldwide and ranked among the top 12 most popular films at the British box office in 1958. Critics praised its atmospheric cinematography and performances, particularly Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. Horror of Dracula kickstarted a series of sequels and established Hammer Films as a major player in horror. It set a new standard for vampire films, influencing countless portrayals of the undead for decades to come. Fiend Without a Face, 1958. From sultry vampires, we shift to something far more cerebral, quite literally. Fiend Without a Face introduced audiences to a new kind of terror. Invisible brain monsters. The film builds tension through unseen threats, perfectly capturing the paranoia of the Cold War era and reflecting fears of unseen dangers and uncontrollable technology. The film's groundbreaking special effects truly set it apart. Using stop-motion animation, a rarity for low-budget sci-fi horror of the time, Fiend Without a Face shocked audiences when it finally revealed its creatures. These brain-like monsters with spinal cord tails were unlike anything seen before, pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable on screen. The graphic violence sparked controversy upon release in 1958. The British Board of Film Censors demanded cuts, and the film's premiere at London's Ritz Theatre caused such an uproar that it was discussed in Parliament. Critics were divided, with some praising the film's suspense and innovative effects, while others found the gore revolting. Despite the mixed reception, Fiend Without a Face has become a cult classic. Its blend of Cold War anxieties and pioneering visual effects make it a standout entry in 1950s horror cinema, cementing its place in film history. Before I get to the next movie, as most of you know, I'm just one guy, 70 years young, putting this all together with a lot of love for classic TV, movies, and cartoons from back in the day. If you enjoy these trips down memory lane, I'd be thrilled if you hit that subscribe button, or even consider becoming a channel member. It's a simple way to keep this passion project going strong, and it means the world to me. Thanks for being a part of this journey. Now, back to the show. House of Wax, 1953. In 1953, House of Wax transformed Vincent Price into horror's ultimate icon. This groundbreaking 3D horror film introduced audiences to a gruesome premise: a deranged sculptor turning living victims into wax figures for his museum. The movie's innovative use of 3D effects enhanced the immersive experience, with scenes carefully crafted to make fights and can girls appear to leap off the screen. Director André Detotte, despite being unable to perceive 3D effects himself, created a thrilling narrative that captivated audiences and critics alike. His unique perspective added depth to the film's visual storytelling. Vincent Price's portrayal of the twisted Professor Henry Jared cemented his status as a horror legend. His performance balanced charm and menace, setting the stage for decades of iconic roles. The film's exploration of art and obsession through Jared's character added complexity to the scares, elevating House of Wax beyond a typical horror movie. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Invasion of the Body Snatchers introduced the concept of a silent alien invasion in a small California town. As the story unfolds, people begin to suspect their loved ones have been replaced by emotionless duplicates. The film masterfully builds psychological horror, making viewers question who can be trusted. Director Don Siegel aimed to entertain, but the film's political undertones were unmistakable. It was interpreted as both a commentary on McCarthyism and a warning against conformity, contributing to its lasting impact. The studio changed the original ending, much to Siegel's disappointment. Despite this, Invasion of the Body Snatchers remains a classic, preserved in the National Film Registry for its cultural significance. Its influence continues today, with multiple remakes exploring themes of infiltration and loss of humanity. As we move from pod people to aquatic terrors, our next film takes us into uncharted waters, literally. Creature from the Black Lagoon, 1954. From the depths of the Amazon emerges a creature that captivated audiences in 3D. But beneath its scaly exterior lies a surprising message about humanity's impact on nature. Creature from the Black Lagoon brought a unique aquatic terror to the screen in 1954. The film's Gill-Man, a masterpiece of creature design, was created by Disney animator Millicent Patrick, though makeup artist Bud Westmore received sole credit for its conception. The film's underwater scenes were groundbreaking for their time. Rico Browning, who played the Gill-Man underwater, could hold his breath for up to 4 minutes during filming. This feat, combined with innovative 1950s underwater cinematography, created a truly immersive experience, especially in 3D. Critics have noted that the creature's tragic existence reflects the impact of pollution and habitat destruction, drawing parallels to modern environmental issues. As we surface from the Black Lagoon, we turn our attention to another iconic monster, one created not by nature but by man's hubris. The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. In 1957, Hammer Films reshaped the Frankenstein legend with The Curse of Frankenstein, a bold adaptation that pushed the boundaries of 1950s cinema. This Technicolor reimagining departed from the monochrome Universal classics, presenting a vivid and graphic portrayal of horror that shocked audiences and critics. The film's unprecedented depiction of gore and violence earned it an X certificate in the UK. Peter Cushing's portrayal of Victor Frankenstein stood at the center of this reinvention. Cushing brought new depth to the character, describing his interpretation as a man of science, a man of intellect, but also a man who was driven by his passions and obsessions. This nuanced approach transformed Frankenstein from a cautionary tale into a complex character study of ambition gone awry. The film's impact extended beyond its controversial content. It was a massive financial success, grossing over 70 times its production cost. This triumph allowed Hammer to build a distinct brand around their horror films, leading to a series of sequels and creating a continuity that was rare for the era. The Curse of Frankenstein forever changed the public's perception of the Frankenstein story, shifting the focus from the monster to its deeply flawed creator. As we move on from Victor Frankenstein's laboratory, we turn our attention to another classic monster about to be unwrapped by Hammer Films. The Mummy, 1959. The 1959 revival of The Mummy by Hammer Films brought a fresh perspective to the classic monster tale. This version emphasized the tragic love story at the heart of the curse, blending romance and horror in a way that would influence the mummy mythos for generations. Christopher Lee's portrayal of Cherished stood out as a masterclass in physical acting. He infused the bandaged monster with a sense of sorrow and longing, creating a character with emotional depth rarely seen in monster movies of the era. Lee's performance transformed Cherished from a mindless killer into a tragic figure, adding layers of complexity to the story. The film also took a critical stance on the ethics of archaeology. It portrayed Western archaeologists as exploiters of ancient cultures, a theme embodied by the character of Mehmet Bey. Seeking revenge against those who desecrated the tomb, Bey represented the voice of the oppressed against colonial invaders, adding a thought-provoking dimension to the narrative. House on Haunted Hill, 1959. William Castle's House on Haunted Hill transformed movie theaters into haunted houses, delivering scares directly to the audience. The film's standout feature was the emergo effect, where a plastic skeleton flew over moviegoers during a key scene. This innovative gimmick blurred the line between film and reality, enhancing the immersive horror experience. Vincent Price's portrayal of eccentric millionaire Frederick Loren was a career-defining moment. His performance in House on Haunted Hill solidified his status as a horror icon, showcasing his unique ability to blend charm with menace. Price brought a new dimension to the genre, setting a standard for future horror performances. Castle's approach to horror filmmaking went beyond traditional storytelling, creating an interactive experience that engaged audiences in ways they had never experienced before. The House on Haunted Hill became more than just a movie. It was a complete sensory experience that left a lasting impact on the horror genre and audience expectations. Night of the Demon, 1957. Night of the Demon offers a unique take on supernatural horror. The film follows an American psychologist investigating mysterious deaths linked to a satanic cult. Director Jacques Tourneur and producer Hallie Chester clashed over the film's approach to its titular creature. Tourneur preferred to keep the demon unseen, believing audience imagination would create more terror than visual effects. Chester, however, insisted on showing the demon at the beginning and end of the film. This artistic disagreement ultimately shaped Night of the Demon into a classic that blends psychological and supernatural elements. The film's ability to create fear through suggestion and ambiguity influenced countless horror movies that followed. Its lasting impact is evident in its continued recognition, with Martin Scorsese including it among his scariest horror films of all time. Night of the Demon leaves viewers questioning what they've seen long after the credits roll, cementing its place in horror film history. The movie's enduring power lies in its skillful balance of the seen and unseen, creating a haunting experience that continues to captivate audiences decades after its release. The horror films of the 1950s left an indelible mark on cinema that still resonates today. These classics continue to influence modern cinema. Their innovative storytelling techniques and groundbreaking special effects of the era laid the foundation for future horror masterpieces, shaping the genre for decades to come. These 1950s horror classics demonstrate how thought-provoking art can emerge from stories of monsters and mayhem, offering insights that extend far beyond simple scares. If you agree or disagree, or if I've missed any of your favorite 1950s horror masterpieces, let me know in the comments below. This is Rich from Rerun Zone. Good night.